Okay, here we go. These are the slides of the 1984, in August of 1984, trip out west. Wendy and Nathan, we went to a wedding, the guy I worked for in Attica, and then took off, drove all night, and spent about 2 weeks every other night in camps and the other night in motels. This is probably somewhere in South Dakota, I think it was. It's Wade and Machu. Too many Indians with sunglasses, but this was the corn palace. Kids were really thrilled with this. Everything you see was made of corn. Those are actually ears of corn up there. More of the corn palace. Pretty exciting highlight of the trip. And then we went into the big Badlands, and I'll let you read that for a second. The rivers washed much of this material away, forming huge valleys and deep canyons. Winds and rains continue to cut into these great plains, exposing the most outstanding examples of Oligocene deposits. The Oligocene epoch was about 35 million years ago. And these are the Badlands. Just beautiful. You can see the sedimentary layers down through there. It was under water at one point in time, and then everything's been washed away through erosion since then, wind and water erosion. There's your mama, Wendy, Nathan, Machu, Bubba Louie. More of the Badlands. It's really pretty. You could walk down, if you had time, you could walk down in amongst all these things. You could see people way down in there every once in a while. It's Nate in the front, and Wade and Matt way back on the next little mountain. This went on for miles. Big stretch of it. There's everybody. There's Wendy and Nate and Matt and Wade climbing around in the Badlands. I'm doing this Saturday, April 13th, 1996. I got a hell of a cold. The kids on the side of the Badlands. There's Sissy. She just barked, is what all that stuff is up through there. More of the Badlands. Miscoordination going up the side. That's Wendy and Matt. No, that's Wade. I can't tell. I think it's Wendy and Wade. Badlands. More Badlands. This is going out of the Badlands. There was a place to stop on the way out of the park where you could look out over them. Kind of neat. It's really pretty country. More of the Badlands on the way out. And then we're headed off towards the Black Hills. That's them in the distance. And this was a place probably somewhere in I'm not really sure, near Mount Rushmore. I remember we stopped. And that's the band behind the kid. Mount Rushmore. Washington and Jefferson and Teddy Roosevelt and Lincoln. You can see the rockets falling down below from where they dynamited and chiseled pieces of rock off. This is the kids below Mount Rushmore. This is with telephoto lens. You can see that some of the cracks that are coming out. This was a inside the, they have a park office there, and this was the scale models that the guy had set up. You can see the plumb bob hanging up there. He'd take measurements and then, you know, multiply them and do it on the side of the mountain then. This is a vault. I don't remember exactly the story. They planned on storing government stuff in that rock mountain. I don't think they ever finished it. It was just in the original design. This was a model of it. This is the kids climbing around near Mount Rushmore. It's Matty Joe. Mott and Wendell. Wendell. I think that's, I'm not sure who that is on top. Might be Wade. I believe it was Wade. Nate coming down. Matthew's off to the left. I don't see Wendell. This is as we were driving out. You get different views when you're driving out of the park. And we took this because this is where Newcastle's where the twins came home to when they were born. I think this was Newcastle. I believe it was Wyoming. Maybe not. Crazy Woman Creek Road. This was named after your mother. I'm just joking. This is a big cattle setup. This was the monument to Chief Crazy Horse. He was a chief of the Oglala Sioux. You can see his arms up there where his head's going to be, and you can see the horse's head down below. A private individual has been working on that, and he died, and his family carries on trying to raise money to finish it. Chief Crazy Horse. This was a camp. We camped out that night somewhere near there. This was near the Custer battlefield. I don't remember exactly. I think we saw an antelope or something. Every once in a while you'd see an antelope. Yeah, this is Custer battlefield. See that little V, the valley type to the right there? If you look on past it, that's the creek, Grassy Creek, where all the Indians were. They were on the other side of the creek, where those trees are, and then that stream, the creek, goes north from there. This was the south end of the Indian camp, and there were about 8,000 Indians, that braves, and more women and children. And Custer came on them from the south end, and he sent Reno. He left Benteen behind with the camp, or the mules, pack train, sent Reno into the south end of the camp, about where the trees start down there on the other side of that creek. And then he went around behind where we're standing right now and to come in from the north end. There's some little foothills right here where we're on. And when Benteen got into the camp, he got the crap beat out of him. So he came up through his men came up through that valley, and then the Indians kept him kind of pinned down right where we're standing. And they stayed until Benteen caught up. And in the meantime, Custer went around into the north end and got completely wiped out. He only had 150 some men, I think it was, less than maybe 200, somewhere right around there, against 8,000. So he was deep before he started. They came up. Reno's men went up into that camp, and then they had to cross the creek on the run and come up through that valley, and that's where they kind of stayed until Benteen caught up. They didn't even know Custer got wiped out until the next day. This is again that valley. You can see they had to come up through to where they made their last stand. Most of them lived that got up to that point. A lot of them died getting there, but this is actually I think this is towards the north end of the camp. Yeah. All those trees you saw down there were the Grassy Creek. Now we're looking off in the distance. The Grassy Creek's to our left, and that's the monument and the final battlefield and everything up there where you see those trees where Custer got it. This is a road. It's about almost 5 miles from where Custer got it and where Reno came in from the south end of the camp. This was at the monument area, park office type place. And there you can see we're standing in the cemetery where most of the soldiers, I don't remember, but most of the soldiers died around Custer, and we're in that area right now, and you're looking down on Grassy Creek. He tried to come in went down this valley here towards those trees, and the Indians came clear way on down from your left, the south end of the camp, and he's at the north end, and then just pretty well wiped him out. There you can see the cemetery off in the distance. I'm down towards Grassy Creek when I took this picture. And along the way, like soldiers died where those monuments are to your left, and 2 died to your right. They were kind of scattered out. This was a painting in the museum there of what they pictured, what the Indians said the final battle looked like. And this is the monument to Custer. And this is actually where they died, where they found the bodies is where they put the monuments. There's nobody buried there. They're buried off in the distance. You can see where those white crosses are, but this is where they found the bodies. That one was, you can see it's mostly has black on the headstone. That's where they found Custer's body. Again. And then that's where they're officially buried. A little more organized cemetery. And that was just an irrigation system we saw along the road. And that's the end of Tray 1. 5 more to go. Okay, this is Tray 2. This was really the Indian Valley along not Cripple Creek, Grassy Creek, where Custer got it. This is they had some kind of Indian rendezvous along the way. We were leaving the Custer battlefield, and they were having a big Indian rendezvous. So we drove back in it just to see Indians and their teepees. And there's your father in his slimmer days, being his typical smart-ass self. And we were all, it was a roadside park we stopped and ate lunch at. That's your mama. And this was just a creek we saw. It was really pretty. These are a bunch of elk. I'm not sure. They were pinned in. I'm not sure why. And then we got to Yellowstone Park, and this is, I don't think this was Old Faithful. This was just, there were many different springs and geysers in the area. It may be Old Faithful, but I don't think it is. There were so many of them. These are some of the just like mineral deposits, just like glass. It was unbelievably pretty. Lots of them you could just walk out on and then walk back. See how they look like just marble, ice or something, but it's actually just hot water mineral deposits. Really pretty. Hard to believe, because I mean everything was green and mountains, and then all of a sudden you just came on these deposits. Then we crossed the Continental Divide, which is down through the Rockies, the highest point in the Rockies, all the way from Canada down to Mexico. It's called the Continental Divide, the highest points. We're still in Yellowstone. This was in Yellowstone, along the road. Lots of elk. This was called Devil's Slide. I'm not sure why, but that's what it was called. Just unbelievable. They had paths all the way out on some of these things. It was really neat. St. Paul's in Yellowstone. We saw a bunch of Canadian geese one morning. We stopped along the road in Yellowstone early one morning. And these are the geysers. Just every once in a while, just come on geysers. These are called mud pots, just like boiling mud. They just kind of flip up in the air once in a while. Now that's Old Faithful. We stayed there, I think it was like an hour and 17 minutes between eruptions. And that's Old Faithful. There was a prairie dog kept hanging around Old Faithful boardwalk there. He was watching Old Faithful. And that was the same one. Old Faithful. In fact, I have written down, I just read here, it was every 45 minutes. It lasted about a minute. And that was just more mud pots. Another area we stopped at on the way out with mineral deposits. It's hot water leaving mineral. That was up in the mountains, and you can see we were above the clouds. See the clouds off to your right hanging down in a valley? Then we went to the Grand Tetons, which which is a mountain range near south of Yellowstone. We came out of the park and went to the Grand Tetons. Really beautiful. This is all in the Tetons. That was the highest mountain in the Tetons. I don't remember what the name of it was. This lake that was the bottom of that mountain, it was called Green Lake. Just really pretty country. And you can't see it, but there's a helicopter going up, taking people on tours up through those mountains. And these were elk antlers. And this was in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Jackson Hole, Wyoming. More helicopter rides. There's a buffalo we saw along the road. It's baling hay. And this is a state highway they were repairing for part of that country. It was all mud. But we got through it. This is called Big Bear Lake, somewhere in Wyoming. And it's funny because they had a lot of cattle guard gates, but every once in a while you just come on cattle roaming. This is on the way down to Utah, and that's upside down, but that was all flooded around Salt Lake City. Everything was flooded. They had a lot of rain lately. That's the Great Salt Lake, part of it. This is more of the Salt Lake. Salt Lake City Airport. More Salt Lake City. This is when we went stop at Salt Lake City and went water sliding. It was neat. All down the side of a mountain. And that's Tray 2. Okay, here we are at Tray 3. This was Salt Lake City, Utah, at the water slides. There's your muscular father down there to the right. I'm not sure who's coming down. I don't know who that is. Might be Nate. Bubba Louie. Wendell. Matty Joe. Nate. Blimp. These are real fast ones. You had a clock down at the end, you could time yourself. Man, I tell you, you go flying over some of those, you go out 3 or 4 feet in the air. It's scary. There's your mama. And there's the kids. And this is when we went into Bryce Canyon. I think it's somewhere southern Utah or maybe Nevada, somewhere in there. This beautiful red rock formation. And that was Candy Mountain, I think it was called. And this is right outside of Bryce Canyon. We camped. That's our tent in the background. We camped that night. Still Bryce Canyon. Bryce Canyon. Unbelievably beautiful. You can walk way down in there. You can see, well, there's people down there. You can't probably see them, but you can walk all through that stuff if you had time. Bryce Canyon. Bryce Canyon. Bryce. Bryce Canyon. Really pretty. Going out of Bryce Canyon into what they call Red Canyon. We got out and took some pictures here because it was just really pretty. Wendy and Mott. Well, maybe that's Wade. Yep, it was Wade. Wade, Mott, Nate, Wendy. Mom and Wendy, or Mom and Matt. This was on the way to Zion National Park. In fact, we might have been there. It's a really pretty mountain. This is all Zion, Z-I-O-N National Park. We drove clear back in the mountains as far as we could go. Lots of tunnels. That hole you see inside the mountain we just come through, there's a tunnel there, and that's a place for gases, carbon monoxide, to escape from cars. We drove by, you could see it real quick, and then you're by it, but then you get down below the mountain, you can look back up and see where you were. More Zion. This is the creek we stopped at in Zion. Leaving Zion. This is called Weeping Rock. It was somewhere in Zion, I remember that. This little, like, tears coming down all the time. On the way out of Zion. Just bad erosion in a cornfield. This is on the way to Las Vegas, I remember that. Oh yeah, we're in Las Vegas. So that's the Stardust. You can't read it too well, but driving down the road at night taking pictures. There's the Riviera off to your right up there. Your mom and I stayed there on the trip one time in the Flamingo. That's where the Rat Pack used to hang out all the time. Frank Sinatra owned part of that. This was Caesar's Palace. You kids, I took you in all the casinos. You had to stay along the walls, but you got to go in all the casinos. There's a fancy McDonald's in Vegas. This was downtown Las Vegas, the old part, not out on the Strip. Just beautiful lights. And we're back out on the Strip now. The Riviera and lots of fun. Your mom and I played a lot, and then Circus Circus up here to your right. They have circus acts going on all the time. It's fun. It's inside one of the casinos. Two kids inside one of the casinos. I think that was at the MGM. That's the motel we stayed at in Las Vegas. And that's the end of Tray 3. This was in Las Vegas, going into Caesar's Palace. Then we went out to Lake Mead where Hoover Dam was. And you're at the top of Hoover Dam. We went down in it. We'll be down below there in a second. That's the top of Hoover Dam. Still on top of Hoover Dam. Now we're down to the bottom of Hoover Dam. Some big turbine generators. And down at the bottom of Hoover Dam now. This is the little highway going down to Hoover Dam as we were leaving. And this was the dam at night. And then this is the Grand Canyon. Probably somewhere, I think that was Arizona, part of it. Grand Canyon was huge. It was so big, I mean, you couldn't, it was just too big. You couldn't get close to anything. But it's really pretty country. It started raining on everybody, that's why we were all scrunching up. Grand Canyon. I think that was, maybe not. That may be Black Canyon, which is near there. No, that's still Grand Canyon. That's somewhere on the Painted Desert. Getting near the Painted Desert, I remember that. part of the Painted Desert. And that was a flooded river somewhere in the Painted Desert. Painted Desert. Couldn't really see much there. It wasn't really worth seeing. Painted Desert. You can see more color in it now. This is a place called Red Rock. Somewhere, pretty sure it was in Arizona. Baba Louie. Bubba and Matt. This electric train that was out through the desert. More Red Rock. This was at Four Corners. You're all standing at the, let's see, I think it's Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, and Colorado, where their Four Corners touch. You're kneeling down right on it. See the below Wade and Matt's hands right there is the exact point. We were there at night. Then we went into Mesa Verde National Park, where all the cliff dwellings were. You see that, well, you can't see it real well, but right at the top of those trees to the left is the cliff dwellings. We did a lot of climbing around on those, in that area. This was covered with wood at one time. It was a worshiping area. They go down in there and worship. They sleep in some of these areas too. That's what Wade's demonstrating, how they slept. There's a lizard, if you can pick him out, kind of brownish with yellow stripes. More areas of cliff dwellings. And this was the biggest one. I don't remember exactly what it was called. This Mesa Verde. You see people down there, how big they really were. They were good size. These are the most extensive cliff dwellings in North America. I think this is called Cliff Palace, if I remember right. The Indian tribes in about 1300s. Well, 1200, 1300s, because I remember they were abandoned in 1300s. They were discovered in 1988. Two cowboys looking for cattle just stumbled onto them, and it became a state park, I remember, in 1906. They built it for protection from their enemies. They couldn't get near them where they were. See Wendy and Matt. Wendy took this picture evidently. Mesa Verde. It's climbing out of Mesa Verde. And that's the end of tray 4. 2 to go. This is more Mesa Verde, climbing out of it. There's an archaeologist still there, still digging the area. Parts of it they didn't even let you go into. I don't know if it was because it was deteriorating that much, or they just hadn't studied it that much. But it was a huge area. And a couple different sites. This is in Durango, Colorado. In fact, this is where Matthew dove in the shallow end and had to have 20 stitches in his head. And there he is in the hospital, getting ready to have the stitches. Poor baby. There he is after he had his stitches. And there's a elk or deer or something upside of that mountain. This is somewhere in Colorado. And this was after a glacier had melted and logs and stuff had piled up. This is part of an ice glacier coming down to the mountain. And some of the mountains in Colorado. This scenery in Colorado. A lot of big mountains. Then we went into Black Canyon. Everything had a shade of black to it, all the rocks. You see the stream, creek curve at the bottom of it. Black Canyon. Still Black Canyon. See Matthew's bandage around his head. People would ask him what happened to him. He'd say, "My daddy beat me." Black Canyon still. Still in Black Canyon. There's some kind of animal, I don't even remember what it was, up on that rock. There's a cattle guard crossing. This is a lake, somewhere near Black Canyon. Monarch Pass, Continental Divide. This is one of the lanes where if your truck lost its brakes, we veer off to the right there and it'd stop, but that's all sand up the side of that hill. You're always running into cattle crossing the road. This is the Great Sand Dunes National Park. It looks just like a Sahara Desert or something. It's at the bottom of the mountains where the sand couldn't get across. It'd blow and then stop there. Really unbelievable. It's in the United States. You wouldn't picture it that way. Mighty Joe. And that's the kids way out in the middle of sand dune. There's the sand dunes off in the distance. Moth View. All big sand dunes, really pretty. Then we came on into Royal Gorge in Colorado. Took some sightseeing tours around there. Had to get in this cart and go right straight down the side of the mountains what we're doing to get to the bottom of Royal Gorge. There's a canoe. That was a raft is what it was. Now we're down to the bottom of Royal Gorge. That's looking back up. And the railroad track along the bottom of there too. And there's the kids inside the cars we had to ride in up and down. Mott and Wendy and Wade and Nate up front here. There were hummingbirds right to the entrance to that place. You can see one to the right there, the feeder. Royal Gorge. And that was the suspension bridge you could walk on if you wanted to. We walked part way, but it was pretty windy and we came back. Royal Gorge. And that was tray 5. One more to go. Okay, this is the last tray. We're still in Royal Gorge on the suspension bridge. And this is just a funny little roadside park we stopped at. This is Deadwood. Iron Springs. Hangman's Flat, Box Canyon, Petticoat Junction, PPTP, and there's deer and all kinds of wildlife around that area. It's right outside of Royal Gorge. People stop petting the deer. Deer eating a watermelon. And this was going into Cripple Creek. Cripple Creek was a gold mining town years ago that people stumbled onto. You can go in a blacktop road, or you can come in, I think it was in the south end, and take this beautiful gravel road that winds through the mountains. This is the road to Cripple Creek, and boy, it was pretty. Never much wider than one lane. A lot of times you had to pull off and let somebody else come through. Road to Cripple Creek. Really neat. This is in Colorado. Then you're coming on into Cripple Creek near the town. And little mine shafts, different places on the side of those hills. You can't see them, but they're there. Everywhere you see piles of dirt is where they dug for gold. Brass Ass at Cripple Creek. There's a little town there, just a lot of souvenir type stuff. It's me and Mighty Joe. Kids with their Purdue coats on, pointing out to your mother. Joke there. It's downtown Cripple Creek. Mighty Joe all beat up. Poor Mighty Joe. It's a motel we stayed at. This is going up Pikes Peak. You could take like a trolley car up to it. We decided we were going to drive it. It was gravel roads most of the way. It was really neat. Going up Pikes Peak. And we had somebody take this picture, all of us at the top of Pikes Peak. I had the van in low gear. I had the accelerator all the way at the floor, could still only do about 5 miles an hour and get up in that high altitude. Still on top of Pikes Peak. That was like the gift shop and restaurant they had at the top of Pikes Peak. There was still snow there, and it was in August, from the winter before it's closed most of the time. Top of Pikes Peak. There's that trolley I was telling you about. Pikes Peak. There's the kids. Pikes Peak. And that was still, I was on top of Pikes Peak too. I don't know what he was doing up there. This is coming back down this gravel road. If you got off to the right, or to the left in this case, you were gone. There's no guardrails or anything all the way up. And they made you stop and test your brakes every once in a while too. They had people that did stop you to see if your brakes were hot coming down. There you can see how the road's twisted and turned all the way up the side of the mountain. Here's where you had to stop and they check your brakes. We just pulled off and stopped for a while. This was called the Garden of the Gods. I don't remember exactly, somewhere near in Colorado. I think it was near Denver, near Pikes Peak. Really pretty. It was like a city park or state park almost. It wasn't a huge park, but man, it was really pretty. Still in the Garden of the Gods. Reno. You see a mountain climber going up the side there. Garden of the Gods. Another antelope we saw on the way. And then we came back through St. Louis, went up in the arch. That's the top of the arch, looking down the Mississippi River. Big barge going down the river. St. Louis Arch. They had a McDonald's boat, so we ate on that. That's Busch Stadium, what do they call it? Where the Cardinals played at the time. And that's the end of the trip. We drove about 5,500 miles in 2 weeks, and alternated staying at motels and then camping out every other night. Bye. This is April 13th, 1996 is when I'm making this.